Welcome to the Roofing, Siding, and Painting Contractors podcast, the show where we talk with real contractors about what's working in their business, what they've learned along the way, and how they're growing in today's competitive home improvement industry. I'm your host, Jenni, from RenoWorks, the visualization software that helps contractors show homeowners what their home will look like before they start the work. And each episode, we sit down with experienced exterior contractors who share practical insights on sales, marketing, hiring, and systems that actually make a difference. Whether you're just getting started or looking to take your contracting business to the next level, you'll hear stories, strategies, and lessons that can help you succeed straight from the pros who've been there. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's jump into today's conversation. Today on the Roofing, Siding, and Painting Contractors podcast, I'm excited to be joined by Daniela Reisch from Reisch Roofing Construction. Daniela, thanks so much for joining us. Now, before we dive in, can you introduce yourself to our listeners, tell us what your company does, and give us a quick backstory about how you ended up there?
Sure. So my name is Daniela Reisch, and I am one of the owners for Reisch Roofing Construction. We are based out of New Jersey, and we started our company in 2017. So it's been a few years, definitely a big journey. Both my husband and I had a construction background, but very different backstory. So he grew up with his father, who was a plumber and an electrician. So he basically grew up around construction, and that's his background. Whereas I went from distribution to manufacturing to opening up this company with my husband. So it's been quite the journey since I have the background of manufacturing and distribution, and my husband has the background of other trades in construction. So it certainly has helped, and that is basically how we got here.
Nice, that's awesome. You can combine your powers and complement each other. That's great. I know a lot of our listeners, they run their companies, it's family run, or they run with a spouse. So just curious, how is running a business with your spouse and also having your marriage, how do you guys kind of navigate that?
It's a great question. I personally think it's very simple to do so. Perhaps it has to do with our temperament, and I guess we're very similar in some of our work ethics or decision making. So we really haven't butt heads too much. Obviously, there has been moments where we've had opposing opinions about something and we talked it through. But I think it's great. And the reason I say that is because I think we have common goals, right? Because we are married, we have children, we have a family together. We obviously want our company to grow, our company to do well, to have a good reputation. We want to do right by the customer. So I think our foundation is the same, and I think that helps us lead our company in the same direction.
That's great. So maybe in some ways that's even strengthening your relationship.
Yes.
And you're building
yes,
this
sure.
together. That's awesome. Well, what were the first services that you provided? Did it start with roofing and then you expanded, or where did you guys kind of begin in 2017?
Yes, so we started with roofing. My husband also has an insurance background, meaning that we've dealt with claims, with roofing claims. He is currently Hague certified, so he knows how to inspect for any type of storm damage. So that really helped because that's a little bit of a niche market, especially in New Jersey. New Jersey is a retail market, so not many contractors around here do storm claims. So roofing was definitely our bread and butter. It still is. We certainly do other things. We've expanded to siding, windows. We've done some interior. We don't advertise interior as much. That's more of we take on certain projects depending on size, and we've done a lot of things for ourselves. So we certainly have done all interior, all exterior, but I would say our main focus continues to be roofing.
Okay. That's interesting. You said it's a retail market. What's your balance between doing retail roofing versus insurance roofing? Because I think those can be quite different when you approach that customer.
Yes, they are very, very different. It's a different process for both. I think in the beginning and inception of our business, we did more insurance claims. So I would say it was probably 80 to 85% insurance, 15 to 20% retail. Today, we do more retail than insurance. It probably has swapped at this point. We do about 80% retail, 20% insurance. And the reason for that is we've changed our marketing strategy. So we used to do a lot of door knocking in the beginning, which, by the way, I'm a very big fan of. I think it's not the easiest, of course, not the most desired for sales reps. It is a lot of work. You're outdoors. It's a cold call. The person may not even want you to be there, but it is very effective. And it just leads to a lot of referrals. So we have, not that we don't do it, we still do it, but we have been focusing a little bit more on some digital marketing and other strategies. So I think that has shifted our customer base a little bit.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I've talked to other contractors. Some love door knocking. They're like, I like to get out there and get the exercise, talk with the guys. But yes, it's one of those things. I've done it too, and it's a whole different kind of self-growth experience.
I love it too, to be honest. If it were for me, I'm happy to just do one small online marketing campaign and then door knock the rest of the year. It's something I do enjoy, but I do think it's not for everybody. I think that it takes a very unique individual to be okay with doing that. There is a lot of rejection, so you have to be able to manage questions and objections you get from the homeowner.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So you're doing more digital. Do you have a marketing company that runs that kind of thing, or
Yes.
are you doing it in-house? Okay.
Yes, so currently we do have a company that's assisting us with the process. I'm very skeptical, and I'll be very honest. We have tried to do it in the past. Perhaps it was with the wrong company. We felt that we were spending a lot of money without the return. And what I mean by that is, were we getting leads? Yes, we were getting leads, but a lot of those leads, sometimes maybe they just clicked on it because they were curious. Maybe they had a small leak and they wanted a repair. So one big distinction with our company is we do not do small repairs. We only do full roof replacements. So if we got a lead that needed a repair, we would be happy to refer them to other fellow contractors that we know do repairs and that do a good job, but it is not our wheelhouse. So we felt that some of our resources were being used in the wrong, for the wrong audience, I would say. So
Right.
we'll see how it goes now. It has been going pretty well. We also, I think our company, we've been very fortunate. We get a lot of word of mouth. So the phone rings. We're busy all year. So all these strategies that we're doing, the marketing strategies, it is to supplement what we already have, which I think we've established in all these years. And we're, again, very fortunate to have a lot of word of mouth.
Yeah, word of mouth is definitely, those are the best leads. They already
Yes.
know who you are and have some sense of trust. That's definitely great if you can get those. Awesome. What does your sales process look like when you do get, let's say you get a lead that comes through a digital campaign, and so they come through, and then what do you do from there? What's that look like?
So we qualify our leads. We make sure that we get all the information. So someone would reach out and give them a call, introduce themselves, and basically get a good background as to what's going on, right? There could be a leak. Maybe they're buying a house, moving, they want to change the roof. It could be cosmetic, they just moved, they hate the color, it doesn't go with the siding, or whatever, they want to change. So there's a lot of different questions and qualifying questions we asked, and we try to get as much information as we can on the phone. Once we do that and we've established the need of the customer, we then offer free inspections. So we will send an inspector out to check the roof, regardless of what the customer is looking for, as long as it's a full roof replacement, right? So for example, if they have a leak, we won't only check for the leak, we'll check the status of the entire roof. If, of course, they want full replacement and it has to do with a cosmetic purpose, we don't necessarily need to inspect as thoroughly as we would if it's something that's causing an issue, but we would still get on the roof. We would still do a full inspection just to understand, if there's any rotted plywood, which obviously we would go inside the attic for, get the history of how long the roof has been there, et cetera, from the homeowner. And then once we do that, we give the homeowner options, right? So, we try to give them more than one option. And a lot of time that has to do with the system, right? We have a more economic option, and then we have something with extra warranties, et cetera. And we try to explain to the homeowner, and we do a lot of educating as to what the difference is, why there's a difference of cost, and how that would potentially benefit the roof in the long run, or maybe not. Again, it varies depending on the homeowner. Some homeowners, that's a rental property, others it's their forever home. So we have those discussions. Then we send out a quote. Once they approve the quote, which sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, sometimes they have other questions. If they do have more questions, we do set up a meeting with them, so they could feel comfortable to ask any more questions. Sometimes it's in person, other times it's on Zoom or online. And then once we've established that, they're going to select a certain package, then we do the scheduling process. So we schedule the roof, and of course we get the color, which, believe it or not, the color is the hardest part. I think it delays the process the most. A lot of times, they don't want to choose the wrong color. Maybe the husband wants a certain color, wife wants a different color. They'll ask a lot for our opinion on this. And, we certainly provide it, but we are very respectful to the fact that this is their home, right? So we give them a lot of neutral options that would help in resale value, because we do work a lot with realtors as well, and we know what would sell, but we also let them choose, because ultimately it's their home and they have to be comfortable with it. So once we have the color and all that, then it goes into the logistics phase of the process. So we would schedule the roof around their schedule, and then we do one call right before we actually do the roof, where we go over what to expect, right? So when are we doing it? What time is the dumpster getting there? What time are our guys getting there? How long is the roof going to take? What happens if we run into any issues? When do we collect payment? When do they receive their warranty, et cetera? Questions like that. And then, of course, we leave it open for them to ask us any additional questions that they may have right before we do the roof. Then we, once we're scheduled, we go in and we rip and redo the roof.
Right, yeah. Well, thanks for explaining that process. That sounds thorough. That's amazing. That's good to just make sure the homeowner knows everything that's going on. You mentioned a couple of things that are interesting. So you said sometimes you do virtual sales, because that's been kind of a thing I know in the last 10 years even. I've known contractors that did virtual, and everyone else was like, whoa, what are you doing? You need to be there in person to build that relationship. But I think more homeowners, it's becoming more comfortable. So what are you finding? Are you getting good response in those situations where you do the Zoom call with the homeowner? Is it you're still able to understand what they're looking for and build that relationship?
Yes, absolutely. Because we do offer that free inspection, so they do see someone in our team go out there, the inspector. I think there's already that increases their trust in our company. So they already have a face to a name or someone associated with our company. And then when we do the Zoom calls, I actually think that is way more convenient. I have found these days. I think after COVID, a lot of people just got used to it. I think prior to COVID was more challenging, but after COVID, people just were very used to being online. And I think they prefer because it works around their schedule, right? They also, a lot of times when we do in person, we come into the house, the wife is there, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry, can you take your shoes off? I'm so sorry, my kids, they left things on the table. I'll just be right back. So I think it creates a little
more
bit
stress.
of a yes. So when you're on, when you're on a call, it doesn't really matter. We're just talking about things that are really important. It'll take our calls take anywhere between like 15 minutes to an hour. I would say the average is about 30 minutes. So, they feel comfortable. And a lot of times too, it's working around both their schedules. So if there's a married couple, a lot of times they have different schedules and they both want to be there. That is definitely a distinction, at least here in New Jersey. The decision makers always want to be a part of these discussions. It is very rare that a wife says, oh, I don't care, just talk to my husband, or vice versa. Because they have different schedules, even if one doesn't work, they might have children and their children have activities or whatever, it's a lot easier to do a call, I would say, for example, at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. On the computer than it would be for us to be at their home that late and, them getting ready for the next day or whatever. So I think it's actually preferred, and I think it's received very well from our customers.
That's great. Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned cleaning up the house, because even personally, that's always a thing where like, oh, we have guests. Okay, someone's going to be here. Vacuum everything, and then you're already in a flustered mode, and now you've got to make a big decision. So that is true. Being able to just put your camera where you want it to be and you focus on what you're trying to get done, and having both decision makers also, that's always been it's like sales 101. Make sure both of them are going to be there, whoever's involved. So that's awesome that you're able to make it even easier for them to align and be there together at that meeting. So awesome. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. Kind of dive more into like operations once things have started and you've got your team out doing the install. How do you make sure everything runs smoothly so that they know what was the expectations that were set? What's that look like?
That's a great question. So operations is obviously very important. This is definitely more of a question for my husband, but I am very involved, so I can still answer it. He is an excellent administrator when it comes to operations. So what we do when we schedule the roof is he's on site in the morning, as well as our roofing crew. And within our roofing crew, in addition to my husband being there, we do have a foreman that can speak to the homeowner if my husband has to run an errand or, for example, go pick up more plywood, etc. So there will always be a point of contact person in the morning. From the administrative end, we also order extra material, right? Which I think most roofers do anyway. So we account for waste. But in addition to that, we also order some plywood, regardless of the fact whether the homeowner wanted us to reframe the roof or not, or whether that was agreed upon. Why? Because there's always at least 1 or 2 sheets that may need some repair. And that sometimes it's hard to see from the attic. You can't possibly see everything. You can see a lot of it, but of course it depends if the attic is finished, if it's not finished, if there's lighting, it depends on the dimensions of the attic. So anyway, so we always send extra material, specifically plywood. That has very much helped our operations during the day. So we don't have the foreman or whoever is there like running back and forth to get more material. So I think we account for more waste than the average roofing company, and we do that on purpose. So we do that, and then again, throughout the day, we do have people there, and then we also canvass around the area where we're working that day. So, it is a time for our sales reps to also use the job that we're doing as a reference point. Like, we're already working here, we would love to do this inspection, we're already here. We also let the neighbors know that there will be some noise, there might be some debris, but of course we will clean it up before the end of the day. And then we're just there to manage the whole project. So one of the things that has come up in the past is definitely things of value that are outside, right? Which has changed in our process in that meeting that we do right before the roof. We tell the homeowners there was a particular job that we were doing that they had a plant that their late mother had given them, right? There's no way for us to know that this particular plant is important to you. So if you can put it on inside, which this plant you could, we would advise you to do that, right? And these things we obviously learn through time. So now we give all these disclaimers, right? Like even if it's like your favorite, your kid's favorite outdoor toy, just bring it inside. Our guys in the morning will help bring anything that's too heavy for the homeowner to do themselves. We try not to be responsible for that and have waivers, etc. So we will help them, but if it's smaller things that they know are of value to them, obviously that has to go on the inside. So little things like that have changed in our operations. We take photos now of the windows, because sometimes when debris is falling, like something can get scratched, or it can, things happen. So we want to make sure that if it's our responsibility, we will cover it 100%. But if it's not our responsibility and it was already there, then of course we would need to prove that. So we do take photographs before, and we do take photographs after, especially when it comes to insurance claims. We need photographs anyway, because the insurance companies require it. So it just has become a part of our retail process as well, and I think it's very good practice. So it's fair for both homeowner and contractor, and it really paints a picture of how the day goes as the job is being completed.
Yeah, that's definitely, that makes sense. I know you walk by your house, you walk by the same window every day, and you'll never notice that there was already something wrong with it because you're just oblivious. So if you have that window, that picture to say, no, this was here, that's great. Just to avoid any kind of things that could come up.
Yeah, screens are a big one, right? Where they ripped before, that are, when we were demoing the roof, that our guys rip it with the debris that was falling. That's a big one. And I think that, it doesn't matter if we change it, if we didn't do it. No, we would do it. But of course, when you have hundreds of customers, it starts to add up.
Yeah, for sure. But even then, if it wasn't your fault and you can prove it wasn't your fault, but then you still make it right, it makes you look even better, I'm sure, than if they just think, oh, it was your fault the whole time. So that's, I think that sounds like really good best practice. Well, it sounds like, you've got the operations. It works very smoothly. So in order for that to kind of go well, I know it's always important to have good people on your team. So how do you attract and keep great people at your company?
Well, we've been with the same people since inception, so we are very fortunate. Of course, we've had some people come and go. I think that's normal for any business. But I think, treating them fair is really important. Paying them fair is important. Sometimes when you penny pinch too much, they view you as difficult, and of course they don't want to work with you. So obviously we try not to do that. Even like when you said, our roofers have made mistakes. I'm not going to say they're perfect, because we're all human. So if they've made a mistake, we usually, we don't yell at them. Certainly we don't have these discussions in front of a homeowner. We try to ask what happened, because a lot of times, there might be a reason. Maybe they damaged the screen because there was a part of a roof that had a lot of hips or whatever, and it was hard for them to do, and something happened. So they would explain the situation, and then we would of course explain our side of the whatever's going on, and tell them that the perception of our company is important, and remind them that, the homeowner, we want them to be happy. We want them to be satisfied with the job. We also want them to pay on time. So, we reiterate things that for a lot of people are common sense. And I think we all can agree to those things. But I think sometimes when you're just working quickly, or when things are happening, it's what's in theory doesn't always end up happening. And that's normal. So I think just like a quick reminder that, it's not their fault. We're not upset with them. We just want them to be a little bit more careful next time. So I think it really goes a long way. And we don't like penalize them or anything like that, unless it's something that continues to happen, which I think we've done once. So I think just building that relationship also is really important.
Yeah, and just have that respect, mutual respect. That's,
yes.
That makes sense. Well, can you tell us a story of any kind of major challenge or anything where you really were taught a valuable lesson that maybe you've pivoted now, or just any kind of thing that maybe someone listening could relate to?
Yes. So, of course, I have a million stories, but one of the story
Mhm.
that really resonates, I think, with a lot of people is just how to navigate your company growing quickly and expanding, right? So we have expanded. We serve all of New Jersey. We serve the southern tip of New York and the eastern part of PA. We also expanded to North Carolina at one point, and we worked with family and friends there, which was great. And our relationship is still strong, but I think that those dynamics are very hard to navigate, especially when you're not there. So we did everything from virtually, from training to setting everything up. We traveled there at least once a quarter. But again, for people that have the drive but don't have the roofing background and experience in construction, it's very difficult for them to be able to manage all that with limited virtual support. So I think that, that was a really big lesson, because we were doing so well and we were very fortunate to be able to expand quickly. But I think expanding too quickly and not having people with experience can really hurt you in the long run, because it just creates a lot of extra work that you may not be able to navigate as well, because you're already busy in other parts of your business. So luckily, again, we still did well. Eventually we closed that division and there was no issues. Again, we still have those relationships, and they're strong. But I think that, it could have gone the other way also, right? So we were very careful to navigate that situation with being a little bit more delicate. But I think that maybe working with someone outside our personal lives would have been a little bit easier. And also someone that came from this background, which, it would have freed up some of our time. So there was less training, and less virtual assistance, which takes up a lot of time, especially when you're not there. So I think that was a really valuable lesson.
Yeah, that's great advice. I know everyone can get excited because you're doing well, and your friends are like, we want to be involved. Let's just teach us, we've got it. But yeah, that's good things to look for, to be like, let's step back and think about this. Great. What advice would you give to contractors who are offering multiple services? Like, you're doing roofing mostly, but sometimes you do siding and windows, or insurance work. How do you balance all that? What would you suggest to somebody who's thinking of doing all of it?
I think, I think you should get really good at one trade and then move on to the next trade. Again, both my husband and I come from very unique backgrounds, so we understood trades in general and just like material list and logistics and all that. So we were able to do that rather smoothly. But my advice would be definitely, become as much of an expert in one area as you can, because I think and the reason I say that is because I think homeowners today are not the same homeowners as 50 plus years ago, right? So there's a lot of resources online today. Homeowners are more equipped, and they know things more than they did before. So they'll ask you really specific and technical questions. So you should be able to answer those questions, right? And then, of course, you're always going to have some homeowners that think they know more because they saw one YouTube video on roofing. But then when you are able to have
Right.
these legitimate conversations, I think they start to respect you more. I think there's a lot of homeowners that are very skeptical because, again, we're not selling anything that they may want per se. We're selling something they need, right? They need to make sure to protect their homes. The roof
Yeah.
shouldn't be leaking. Same thing with the windows. They don't want too much draft of air coming in. They want it to be sealed correctly. Same thing with siding. They want it to last. Really get to know your homeowner. So I think that you can do different trades, but you should educate yourself as much as you can and have some experience, because you will have homeowners question you. And I think that really affects the reputation of your company.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's very interesting about the homeowner being more educated these days because they can find things online. So that's a good segue. What would be the ideal homeowner for you? Someone that would make your job easier, more successful.
Um, I guess I'm a people person because I really haven't had many issues with homeowners. I think I get along with pretty much many different personality types. And I think it's really just discovering what they need and what they want. Because sometimes they don't even know. They know they want or need a new roof, but they don't know what system, what color, like why one system could be different than another, right? So there's a lot of, again, that education that you're giving to the homeowner. But the perfect homeowner for me is a busy homeowner. And I say that because busy people make decisions quickly. Because they want to check it off their to-do list and then they have to move on to whatever else is next, right? Sometimes when you have a homeowner that, and I don't want to say they're not as busy. I mean, we're all certainly busy, but maybe they're retired, maybe they just have a little bit more time in their hands. They tend to not make decisions very quickly. They tend to have more questions, which again is fine. And, we're happy to service these homeowners also. But what happens is, for example, you'll have different systems, right? We can give them a couple of options, but they want to know every system that's out there. Right. And then again, they'll go online and
Yeah.
they'll say, well, what about this particular shingle? Then I say, well, they don't sell that in New Jersey, so I cannot give you that system. Well, why not?
Right.
I don't know. I don't work for that manufacturer, right? So it just, I think that education is great and knowledge is power. And I certainly would advise homeowners to do some homework before hiring a contractor. However, too much information can actually deter you from certain things and it can confuse you. And sometimes, like, you might want to get fancy and say, well, what if I do this system with a GAF shingle, but then something else underneath? And I'm like, well, you could do that, but why would you do that, right? Like, if you have a problem in 10 years or in 20 years, God forbid, and there's a leak, the manufacturers may point the finger and say, well, that's because of their shingle. No, that's because of their underlayment. Like, do you really want to do that, right? So sometimes we have to kind of bring them back to reality. So I feel that a busy homeowner is probably the easiest to work with. If you've already built a rapport with them, they trust what you're saying. They might fact check you here or there, and then they say, okay, you know what? I'm too busy anyway. I'll take your word for it. Let's just get this done.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That's good insight. Just tell me what I should do, why I should do it, and just do it and carry on. So that sounds like a good homeowner I would want to. What would be a tip that you would give to a homeowner to get the most out of their home exterior project?
That's a great question. So again, I think you should do your homework. And doing your homework is not just reading reviews online. There are some companies that pay for reviews. We are not one of those companies, but some companies do that. So when I say do your homework, I mean at least have a basic understanding of a system, right? Like, what's a ridge cap, et cetera. You don't have to be an expert, certainly, but just a small background, if it's, for example, a roofing system or siding or whatever it is. And then, make yourself a list of questions. I wouldn't do more than 10 questions. I think 3 to 5 is more than enough. And then ask the people that you're potentially going to work with these questions and see how comfortable they feel answering these questions, as well as how comfortable you feel with them giving you this information, right? And then I think that they should not have more than 3 quotes from 3 different companies. I think there's fatigue after. It's like too much, too many options, too much work, right? So get a quote from no more than 3 companies, see who you feel the most comfortable with. I would say pricing should definitely not be the top of your priority. It really should be probably warranty and reputation, right? Like, you want to pick a company that's going to be open in 10 years, not that's going to be closed in 10 years, right? Because even if you have the best warranty from the best manufacturer, if that company's out of business, they will try to honor it and they will send you another contractor. But now you're dealing with this contractor doing their own inspection, they didn't do the roof, they're not 100% sure, they're going to send an independent report to the manufacturer, then they have to process it and see if it falls within their guidelines of their warranty. So it's just, it's different. So I would say choose someone that has been in business for some time, choose someone that you trust, that you think will stay in business, and then just really trust that they'll do the right thing, right? At some point you do have to let them kind of take over the process. But that would be my advice. Just do your homework, but be very careful who you choose, and ask yourself that question, like, will they be in business in 10 years if I have an issue?
That's great advice. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for giving that. So, yeah, don't overanalyze. Pick the right contractor, and you should be set. That's awesome. Well, that's fantastic. It was really great having you on the podcast today, Daniela. Thanks for sharing everything with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was a pleasure. This was a lot of fun.
Do you have any final piece of advice you'd give to anybody getting started in construction?
I think my advice stands. Try to learn as much as you can. I'm still learning. I mean, I've been doing this for many years now, so I think I'm an expert to some degree. We do this every day. When a homeowner calls us, it's not the first time we're doing a roofing system. So it is, I guess, for me, like second nature to answer some questions and just know the process. But, things change. Laws change. For example, in New Jersey, we don't have to get roofing permits, and it's been a few years now. I know that's not the case in other parts of the country. Insurance policies change. So I think, educating yourself and continuing to do so is very, very important. Try to get as involved as you can, and never stop learning in whatever sector or trade you're in.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Good advice. Well, thanks for chatting with us again today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. It was so great meeting you. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks. You too.
Bye-bye.
That's it for today's episode of the Roofing, Siding, and Painting Contractors podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a review to help more contractors discover the show. This podcast is brought to you by RenoWorks, the visualization software that helps exterior contractors show homeowners what their new roof, siding, or paint will look like before the job even starts. You can learn more on our website at www.renoworks.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep building, keep learning, and keep growing your business.